And
Hmm.
so we, on the one hand, we have Intel now headless, and then Workday now sort of has two heads.
Hmm. Yes. So on a brighter note, Workday is bringing in Rob Enslin, who we know in the enterprise app space as honestly both a guru and a longtime expert executive. He spent time at SAP, Google Cloud, and then most recently at UiPath. But obviously, with his long tenure at SAP, the guy knows how to position enterprise platforms, which is exactly what Workday is looking for right now. They have long been known as an HR powerhouse, but they have actually made a bunch of finance acquisitions over the past decade across Adaptive Insights from a financial planning, budgeting, and forecasting solution. They bought Scout to get into the RFP and procurement business. They have their own analytics capabilities as well, but they aren't really seen as a financial player to the extent that Carl Eschenbach, their CEO, would like them to be. When we think of finance players, we're still thinking of SAP and Oracle first, not Workday. Let's be honest. So this is a good step for Workday, I think. But Rob at the same time seems to have his work cut out for him as someone who is trying to change the mindset of Workday.
Well, I think it's a huge hit, or not hit,
Mhm.
I guess, huge challenge. It's going to be quite a shift, and I think it's twofold. I think Workday itself. I mean, I'm not a huge Workday follower. I haven't spent a ton of time briefing with them and over the years, but clearly from everything I understand, internally they are very much, this AR centric. That's always been their angle, and that certainly shows externally that in the enterprise mindshare space that it's, I think they have, successfully created themselves a borderline monopoly in this space that's going to be very difficult to
Mhm.
break out of. So, I think it is if that's the primary reason that they brought him on, I think I agree he's a good fit. He has much broader base of both experience and connections, and I think can help drive some market credibility, certainly within the analyst community. Um, but is that going to be enough? Is
Mhm.
that's going to be the challenge, or what is it going to take, or how long is it going to take, and how much patience do they have, given what we just talked about with Intel? So I think those are the challenges. And I think Workday, to me, Workday's biggest gap is, or biggest challenge facing them. It's like I understand why they're doing it. It's a challenge of any company that gets to a certain size. They have to find adjacent markets to expand into.
Mhm.
Um, but if I'm a CIO today and going, wait, so you're trying to become the next SAP Oracle? Why in the world would I want that? You know,
Mhm.
it's like we rail against these organizations because they became so big that they were monstrous and we couldn't manage it. So, that's, I think, to a certain extent, and this has nothing to do, this has nothing to do with Rob. I think that
Mhm.
um, we're in this very interesting era. On the one hand, we're seeing a lot of motion towards the people, CIOs consolidating their investments in a handful of platforms, and I think that part works for Workday. I think we're also in an interesting era driven by AI where there's a lot of interest. I've just been talking to a bunch of CIOs recently, and 201, it was like, well, I'm wide open. If some small startup comes with something that's going to really transform how we work and can really show me to change it, I'm all ears, including
Mhm.
unseating major incumbents. So I think that it's a really interesting and challenging time for Workday. So I think it's a good move for them. I hope they don't have too high expectations because I think it's a long, tough road for them.
Yeah, one of the things I've always found interesting about Workday is that they do a lot of work with skills. Obviously, they understand the skill sets associated with each employee. They have their skills cloud, and in theory, you could create an ERP like experience that is focused around augmenting skills. Now, I don't think Workday's actually done that, but they're one of the few companies that actually has the potential opportunity to do that. And if they could figure out a way to actually augment skills and then bring that to the business, I think that's a game changing ability. And in theory, like you have skills, you have finance, you have a bunch of visibility into what the business is trying to do next. But that, that's a stretch, and it seems at this point, Workday is taking a more traditional ERP-ish approach, and to their credit, they are partnering more with other companies, and they have this extend capability to start building apps on the Workday app on the platform, realizing that ServiceNow has been very successful taking that approach as well. So, they're starting to take incremental steps towards that next stage. I've given away my cards on where I think they should head, but we'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I guess this is sort of a segue. Going back to, I think we're at this really interesting sort of junction point where we have all these sort of competing things going on. Because on the one hand, I just talked about the fact that I'm certainly hearing from executives that there is a interest in consolidating investments into these handful of platforms, and that works well for Workday.
Mhm,
Um, but if you look at what ServiceNow or Salesforce is doing right now, they are also, I think, giving some credence to this sort of movement that we've had recently, in which the focus is sort of shifting from the system of record to the system of engagement.
mhm,
Where the system of record, there was an entire conversation on LinkedIn that happened with some of the folks that we know, um, about that sort of shift where it's like, well, it used to be that all the money, all the source of power was in that system record, the Workdays, the SAP, the Salesforces. And increasingly with AI, we're now seeing this shift away to this focus on the system of engagement. And so you sort of ask yourself, is Workday going, is this the right play for them going that direction, trying to effectively extend their system of record perspective? So, I think it's way too early to tell, and as with most things, it's there's not going to be a single answer, but